Hey guys, it's Andrew from the blog Pine and Prospect Home, and today I'm sharing a very simple Christmas cocoa and coffee bar with you guys. This was so easy to throw together and it was so affordable. I just used all of the secondhand dishes that I already had. I didn't have to go out and spend any extra money, and I've actually never put a cocoa bar together before. My friend Aaliyah from Open Door Home, I'm going to show you a little bit of her blog so you can see how amazingly talented she is. I love everything she shares, and I hope you guys will head over and subscribe to her beautiful blog. But she reached out to me a couple months ago and asked if I would be interested in joining her and a few other friends and putting together a little Christmas cocoa bar to share with you guys. And I thought, you know, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've never done one before. I've seen them before on Pinterest and I think they are so wonderful, especially if you're having guests over. And there are so many different takes on cocoa and coffee stations. A lot of people use Keurigs for theirs, or even crock pots to keep the cocoa warm, which I think is a great option, especially if you're trying to keep everything out for several hours. But I was very inspired by the dishes I already had. I wanted to use pieces that I've collected over the years. And if you guys remember, a few months back, a sweet follower sent me some vintage false graph pieces. If you've been following along for a while, you know that I collect the Heritage White vintage false graph pieces, and I have a whole blog post about that if you want to check it out. There's a few pieces that you can see on the shelves behind me. But a sweet follower sent me a very tall coffee pot and also a teapot as well, and I was just so thrilled. I had been hunting for those pieces for so long and I hadn't had any luck finding them yet, and so I really wanted to use those for my cocoa bar and create sort of more of an old-fashioned feel to this coffee/cocoa station. I'm not quite done decorating for Christmas. In fact, if you guys could see my house right now, I would probably be a little bit embarrassed. My countertops are covered in ribbon and greens and lights, and I'm almost finished decorating the house and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So usually during the Christmas season, I hang greenery on the mirror that you see behind me with some ribbon. But for this cocoa bar, I hadn't quite gotten to that point yet. So I simply set a beautiful faux cedar wreath on my buffet and just propped it right up against the wall and added some beautiful ribbon, which I talked about in my last video. Ribbon just adds this beautiful holiday touch wherever you place it. And so that was sort of the backdrop for this station. Then, of course, I took a little vintage Santa candy mold that was my grandmother's, and I tucked it at the base of the wreath and added some fairy lights, which instantly created this Christmas magic. So that was, like I said, the backdrop to this cocoa station, and that's what I started off with. After adding the wreath, I got my false graph tea and coffee pots and set them right in front of it. And rather than doing all white false graph, I wanted to incorporate some blue into this coffee bar, since there's these little blue juniper berries on the wreath that I used on my buffet. Which, by the way, I found this wreath at a thrift store. It was actually brand new from Target, and it still had the Target tags on it. Sadly, they don't make it anymore, but I will put a link to a similar one in my blog post if you want to check that out. So playing off of that blue and white, I went and grabbed my blue and white Courier and Ives dishes, my little teacups and saucers. We actually really do use these all the time for hot cocoa. My boys love drinking out of them. And so I stacked those up on the other side of the buffet. And I love the contrast between the blue and white dishes and then the beautiful timeless false graph pieces as well. So I continued on with that theme, sort of mixing and matching the pieces. I went and grabbed a cream and sugar set that I recently got on my last thrifting adventure that I'll put a card here for if you weren't able to catch that. I got them at my local thrift store and I added some cream and sugar to these dishes, and I set them on a vintage cutting board that was my grandfather's, and I placed that right in front of the tea and coffee pots. And then after that, it was time to add the toppings. So of course, If you watched my pumpkin pancakes video, you know that we are all about homemade whipped cream. It's the absolute best. Once you have homemade whipped cream, you will never go back to store-bought. I whipped up some homemade whipped cream, and it's just like a cup of heavy cream with around 2 to 3 tablespoons of sugar. Throw it in your stand mixer and let it whip up until you see stiff peaks. It's so simple and so easy and so rich and delicious. So I added some of that to a small Falstaff white serving bowl with a little vintage wooden spoon, and then I took another, I believe it was probably like a sugar dish with a lid, and I added that to the table as well with some marshmallows because we love putting marshmallows on our cocoa. After that, I made some homemade hot cocoa, which is so delicious. Actually, this time we made it with almond milk, and I was so impressed by the flavor. My son has a lactose intolerance, and so I decided to use almond milk, and it added this delicious nutty flavor to the cocoa. It was so amazing. I put my homemade hot cocoa in the smaller Falstaff teapot, and it was just the perfect vessel for hot cocoa. I absolutely loved using it for this display. Finally, I just took some cinnamon sticks and set those out in case anyone would want to grate some fresh cinnamon, and that was really it. That's all I did for this display, and some vintage spoons for stirring were really the last thing that I added. This was so simple to put together, and I just love the way it looks in my dining room. The next time I have friends and family over, I will definitely be using this coffee/cocoa bar. I hope it inspires you guys to use what you have, to look around your house, to shop your home first before buying anything new. And honestly, I could have added so many more toppings to this. I love the idea of using candy canes as stirring sticks for your cocoa. We love having peppermint hot cocoa. I have peppermint essential oil, and sometimes just 1 or 2 drops in the hot cocoa adds this delicious peppermint flavor. We love doing that. So I can definitely see using candy canes would be a wonderful addition. You could also put some mini chocolate chips. I mean, there are so many different things you could add to this station, but I just used what I had on hand, and I really think it came together beautifully. Well, I hope you guys will head over to my blog post and check out all of the other beautiful hot cocoa inspiration there. I will have all of the other bloggers linked in the post. You can go through and see all of their beautiful cocoa bars as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you're new to my channel, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.